what is in SSASECT primarily. At the same time, I think it's going to be helpful as we navigate different scenarios of what you might encounter as schedule changes happen for fall 21. Without further ado, let's get started. As mentioned before, this part of Banner, PPRD, this is for training purposes. Yours is going to look different right here. And it starts with a P. Does anyone happen to remember what it's called?
PROD.
Paula, you get 1,000 points. Well done. Yes, PROD is correct. So that's what it looks like once you're able to receive that access. So let's go ahead and pull up SSASECT, which again is the part or form or page of Banner that you can pull up. So SSASECT. We're going to click that here. We always have to put in the term and the CRN. Does anyone remember what the term starts with?
202190.
Another 1,000 points. Then we want to put in the CRN. So for today's purposes, I already have one selected for us. And it's Art 491 Special Topics. So if you see this pop up, perfect. That means that this section exists. And this is just a great way for you just to double check. Now, in the off chance that you might mistype something, for instance, let's say I'm going really fast one day and I'm just typing something in and press tab. If you see this error, this means that you typed in a CRN that doesn't exist. So meaning a section doesn't exist that's tied to the CRN. Just be aware of that if you run into it. But let's go ahead and type this in. And again, if you don't know the CRN, if you click these 3 dots, it will give you the ability to select which CRN. Then we'll click go. This is, again, the main part of Banner that you're going to make changes on. For this particular tab, this tab really is going to deal with changes of instructional method right here. And if a course needs to have a permit on it or an IN. As a reminder, going through, this is going to have the main course information. Now, what will this section look like if it's an extended studies course?
It'll have an E.
Correct. This would have an E and then a 01, 02, you name it. So keep an eye out for that. If you run into anything of that nature, go ahead and direct any questions about changes to course sections to extended studies first. I would highly suggest that. Then, over here, MP is always going to be for main campus. If it's MPC, that too is also extended studies. Anytime you see that there, I would highly, highly encourage you to reach out to extended studies first. Now, let's say that you need to change the instructional method, or you're curious what types of instructional method there are. If you click the 3 dots, you're going to see this list. Okay, the reason we can click an instructional method right now for this course is because no students are registered for it. You would not be able to click those 3 dots to pull up this list if there are registered students. It would be grayed out. So remember, gray means you cannot edit it, white means you can. But for the type of training we're doing and what you can do, in this instance, you should be able to change the instructional method very simply, because it's available to you. Now, you will only be using the numbers. You're not going to use anything else, just the numbers, but specifically speaking, certain numbers. So 1 is face-to-face for the modality type. 2 is mixed face-to-face, which is short for hybrid. So for a hybrid course, it'd be instructional method of 2. If it is online, so in particular, if it is a on-campus, not extended studies, but an RI online course, you would use a 3. You could also use a 3 too for synchronous online. 4 is correspondence. You are not going to be using this one. That is strictly for extended studies. So you're not going to be using number 4. And then number 5 is used, as you can tell, for independent study, directed study. So it could also be field experience too. That's where you'll really see the 5. You're not going to be using 6 and 7. You'll use, but primarily for 498 courses. So those are the instructional methods that you have the option to select from. So it's really for main campus purposes, not extended studies, 1 to 3, 5, and 7. Now, I'm going to back out of this because I want you to see this schedule type. One of the things that you need to keep in mind is if you are ever going to use this instructional method of 3, and the course is a lecture, okay? So you see just this lecture here. Or if you click it, which we can't yet, but I'll show you how we can in a moment, you need to make sure that anything with an instructional method of 3 has the EE schedule type. I've mentioned this before in trainings, and I'll mention this here. We are learning on the go just as you are as well. And we found out that if you are using an instructional method of 3, but for a lab, if you have a lab and it's an instructional method of 3, you might see a schedule type here that says LL. Okay, if it says LL and you're changing it to an instructional method of 3, this needs to be EL. So for labs where a schedule type option is LL and you're changing the instructional method to a 3 for it to be online, an RI online course, then this would be EL with a 3. If it is lecture where you see LE here, okay, that's one of the options, then you would have it be as such if it's going to be an instructional method of 3. So EE 3 for lectures, EL 3 for labs. But that's something crucial that you would need to be aware of. So that's what would happen if you were going to select a 3. So on this side, this is where you're going to see the type of grade for that course that's already been selected for you. You don't have to worry about that. But if an instructor decides down the road, this course should be permit only, in AIS, that's typically what it's called, right? In Banner, it's called an instructor approval or an IN. All you would have to do is type that in and press tab, or if you press the 3 dots, you have all these different options. The only option you'll ever need is going to be this IN, this instructor approval. So that's what you would use for that. We'll go ahead and click it, and we can double click, or you can just highlight it and select OK. You have a couple of options there. But this is what makes a course permit only.